Hello, everyone. We have Tim Berce here tonight with us with a product that will all, I think, feel if it works well. So, Tim, what was your business idea and how does it change the world?
Hi, Robert. Thank you so much for inviting me to join you on this really cool live stream. I'm one of the founders behind Descrybe. We're essentially an AI-powered PIM. We help marketplaces get their products to market much faster. We automate the entire process instead of it taking a lot of manual work, as most of them have to do.
So if I go to Temu and I see the product and I don't know what it is talking about, what is it about, and you make it better, essentially.
It's one of the things that we do. So one key challenge that a lot of really large retailers have, if we kind of think about this from a perspective of a e-commerce owner, right? For example, if you want to get a product to show up on your online store, it takes a lot of work to actually do that. You have to put it in the right category. You have to set all the correct attributes like size or color or material so that your customers are able to find it, right, using the search filters. And then you also need to write a title that's SEO friendly and a description, as you've just mentioned right now, right? You need to have an SEO friendly description and something that customers can relate to and understand what that product is all about. Now, this isn't really a big problem if you're selling maybe 5 or 10 or 50 products in your online store, but once you get to a point where you're selling thousands, hundreds of thousands of products, potentially switching them out every year, adding like 50,000 new products per year to your online store, well, that becomes like a lot of work, a lot of manual work, as it turns out. So a lot of these marketplaces, they hire quite big teams of people to just do this manually. And we've noticed that, because this takes quite a lot of hands-on work, it takes a long time to get a product from a supplier to your online store. Well, we decided to try and tackle this and automate this entire process.
So what was the moment when you went from the idea in your mind to that breakthrough? Okay, let's make it real. Was that a moment, a person? What was the trigger?
This is such a great question. And for me, it's still kind of surprising how we got to this point. But it initially started as a really simple idea. I was shopping for a new washing machine, and I'm not an expert on washing machines. So I was browsing this online store that had over 200 different makes and models published. And, I really struggled picking with the right one because I really don't know anything about washing machines. And then every time I opened one, it didn't really have a description, didn't tell me anything. There were just a few bullet points, just the technical specifications of each product. And it was kind of confusing to me. And that's why I kind of initially thought, hey, it might be really valuable now with the advent of large language models to just generate a really friendly description for all of these products. And that was the initial idea. So I'm a big fan of selling before you build. So initially what I tried to do is I just built out a pitch deck that already kind of made it seem like we had this tool already built. And we approached, different kinds of marketplaces, and we said, hey, we have this, here are your descriptions. They're really boring. They don't contain any useful information for the average customer, right? They're not going to understand what they're buying. So our tool will allow you to just generate a much friendlier description where people are actually going to understand what they're buying, and this is going to help you, sell more products. And, we got some conversations that way, and the marketplaces started speaking with us. And we're like, kind of interesting. But, one of them point blank said, Tim, this is interesting, but this really isn't our main issue. This isn't the main challenge that we're dealing with when it comes to selling our products online. And they said, well, do you think your software could also set our product taxonomy? At that point, it was a couple of years ago, we kind of looked at them a little bit weird. And I asked them, what do you mean by product taxonomy? And they said, well, we have, all these attributes that we need to fill out, like size and color and all of the other stuff that I already mentioned. And that kind of, made me pause a little bit and think, oh, wow, there's a actual big challenge here that maybe we can tackle that. And that's initially how we got started. So from just a simple pitch deck to direct conversations with potential customers. And then with their help, we essentially developed Describe to where it is today. So kind of a really different approach, at least for me personally, when it comes to building products. But it turned out to be, at least I think, in my opinion, the right way. Starting with customer issues as the number one priority.
Agree. And without building the product first, but first get the right customers with the real issue, who is able and willing to pay for that.
Correct.
Yeah, I like that, because it's the most. I think it's the most is the easiest time in history to build a company, but if you build it the right way, like you did, it's way easier than any others. So was there something that really surprised you in this entrepreneurial journey, in a good or bad way?
I've been a solopreneur for the past 10 years or so. So I've been through a lot of different things, from a lot of ups and downs, and seen all kinds of different things. I think initially what really surprised me when I was just starting out was that this is actually possible, that you can actually build a business and live off of it. You don't really need specifically to go and find a job and go through that process. So that was like the initial part. But I think at this stage, some of the things that really surprised me is just how fast things are moving. And how quickly you need to adapt to changes in the market, how quickly new technology shows up that can completely change the way that we approach solving problems or automating work, and just new capabilities that pop up seemingly out of nowhere. I think ChatGPT was one example of such a piece of technology that completely changed the world practically overnight. And I'm always on the lookout for new things that might change the world this quickly. And I'd say I'm constantly surprised when it comes to all of the things happening around us, especially in this space.
This is the time when I think we have between starting the internet bubble and now artificial intelligence boom, I think there was a little easy time where things weren't evolving so fast, but now they come at the right time for your product, I think. So how big are the companies you're working with? I think these are big companies.
Yeah. So, like I mentioned in the beginning, right? If you're selling 5 or 10 or 50 products, this isn't really that big of a deal. You sit down, you take a week, you sort of all of the products, you get them ready to get published, and you just publish them on your store. But most of the companies that we deal with, I think our smallest company does about 250 million in yearly revenue. But their goal is to publish between 10 and 50,000 products per year. So this is kind of the scale where this becomes a true problem, where you can't just employ a single person or 2 people, to work on this, but you already need a team, maybe 5 people, maybe 10 people, lots of times even more than that. And you kind of have to manage all of that, right? And it's really difficult to hire for this specific for this specific job, because on the one hand, it's quite tedious work. You have to be very precise with making sure that all of the technical specifications align correctly. You're not making mistakes at that point. That you're, writing product formulas and the product titles in the correct formula. You have to be really, really careful with the way you approach this. And on the other hand, it's also not perceived as extremely high value work. I think that's why a lot of companies are seeing a lot of churn when it comes to people who do this kind of work, which again creates new problems as new people come on board. They're not familiar with the type of work. You need to onboard them again. They're making more mistakes. So this is where I think like one of the biggest challenges lies in scaling up any sort of big online business.
So if I am this big company and wanting your support or your product, how do I approach you, and what do I expect? How does the process work when I said, okay, I have this problem, I want it solved? How much time does it take? What are the steps, perhaps, to manage this?
So this is a process that I've been kind of obsessing with a lot, and I think like every founder, especially when it comes to SaaS, should really obsess with the onboarding process. And this is something that I've spoken with numerous consultants from around the world, people who've been working in B2B enterprise SaaS for a long time, from B2C SaaS, all of that. And I've spoken with, I think, probably like 10 or 15 people just in the last 6 months, purely on the topic of onboarding. I wouldn't say I'm the expert on this just yet. I think I'm still figuring a lot of things out. But so far, I think I've come up with, together with the help from all of these consultants, a pretty good process for onboarding and bringing new customers into the fold, especially as a startup, not as a huge established brand, which I think changes the process a little bit. And I already have certain steps that I would change when it comes to this. But right now, what we're really focusing on is really trying to get our potential customers to the wow moment as quickly as possible and with as little risk as possible. So we're trying to take all of the risk on our end, which is sometimes it's a little hard because you're still a startup, you're growing, all of that. But I think it makes sense from a positioning perspective that you want to take on all of the risk. So what we do is we take care of all of the onboarding. We don't sell a SaaS as a normal SaaS, but we sell it as part of a full service. Right. So we take care of all of the onboarding process, of all of the integrations, all of the work, and we demo the product to the prospect. So we take care of all of the onboarding, and then we give them access to the platform and allow them to actually play around, figure it out, see, and have that wow moment, right? That click where they realize, okay, no, this is going to be massively helpful. This is going to save a lot of time for us. And that's when we kind of approach them and say, okay, well, you've had this opportunity. You've seen that this can be valuable for your organization. Here's how we can move forward, right?
Excellent. And I think we have to emphasize that it's not just time, but also all the stuff that that buyers see that they wouldn't see otherwise without your product.
Correct. I think like we're living, and I think it's only going to get worse at this point, which is we're going to have more and more SaaS all around us. And I think like, especially in the age of vibe coding now, I think everybody is going to be building their own SaaS, right? I think it's already kind of happening. And I don't know of any person who's excited to learn a new SaaS platform, right? Oh, great, I have more stuff to learn and a new interface to kind of figure out. Nobody likes this process, right? So one thing that I've kind of realized from all of my conversations with people who are, way more experienced than I am, is that you really want to avoid this initial pain, right, of learning a new tool. So I think it'd be extremely difficult for us, especially because it's not a typical, easy to use B2C SaaS where you can just put a user on and tell them, hey, he watched this 5-minute onboarding video and then, go play around. It's actually quite a difficult process to integrate all of the product feeds, all of the taxonomy, and just make sure that everything is up and running. So I don't think at any point we'll do that. It might change, years down the line, but I think we're going to be offering this full service kind of experience forever, because I think this really makes sense especially for B2B SaaS, where everyone's busy. Nobody wants to learn a new platform, and people want to kind of have this full service available to them.
Excellent, yes. And I love the approach, because I think in the companies, and also when hiring people, there's the same problem, that onboarding sucks basically, and you lose customers, and you lose good people because of that. And people don't emphasize that just enough. So you mentioned that you have consultants or coaches. What's your take on that?
So I'm actually a huge fan of learning from others. I didn't figure this out myself. When I was just, first time, I just started off in my first job. One thing that really stood out to me was how much resources the company that I worked for invested into my growth, and how many external mentors they brought in to kind of help me grow as quickly as possible. And I had the opportunity to firsthand see just how valuable and incredibly valuable that can be. So I kind of always kept that along with me. Anytime I approach any project, I always try and figure out a good way to learn about it before I tackle it. And I think, with platforms like LinkedIn, this is actually incredibly easy to do. I have this one personal growth hack that I usually like to say that this is, I've had many ideas, almost none of them were original, but this one idea is my original idea. I love sharing it with everyone, and it's been incredibly helpful for me. But what I do is, whenever I want to learn a specific topic or learn more about one specific subject, what I do is I look up people who are active in that specific area, and I look them up on LinkedIn, and I try and find them from different companies and companies that would kind of tackle the problems that I'm going to be tackling. And I just send them a message, and I say, hey, you're doing some pretty incredible things. I really want to learn about that. Would be, are you open to, maybe some form of consulting or mentorship? Could you help me out with this? And, just this has been incredibly valuable throughout my entire career, is just trying to find people who are actively solving the problem that you want to learn about, and just messaging them, asking them, offering to pay for the mentorship, and then getting essentially a lot of value back that way.
I like that approach, because I think most of people are afraid to ask. And I think there's a saying in the Bible that says, ask and you shall receive, or something like that. And I really like it a lot, because I think the same way, that we are too I don't know, scared, because what can happen? The other person can say no, or say I don't have time, or something like that. But usually people are more friendly than we expected. And I think that was the same situation with this podcast. I think you reached out saying, okay, sell first and build later is the great idea. We did it ourselves, and that's why we are here today.
Exactly. I saw that tagline on your LinkedIn, and I figured, wow, Robert probably knows his stuff, if that's, because it really connected with me as well, because I think the exact same way.
Yeah, great. So from all other advices from the coaches, were there some of them, or one that you would share with us today that really sticks with you?
So the major one was this onboarding process. I think that was, at least for me personally, because I always try to, whenever I'm asking for advice, I'm always trying to filter through it and figure out, where is this piece of advice actually going to be valuable for us, right? As we're building and growing. So I always try to focus on the immediate value, not on things that are going to be valuable, in maybe 5, 10, 20 years down the line. So for me personally, the onboarding stuff was kind of the key. I didn't really know how to approach that correctly, but this idea of not just selling a platform, but selling a full service, I think was extremely valuable. And I think that's something that almost any founder can take away, especially aiming towards your, top end customers, the high end customers. I think for them, you should be offering a full service, not just a platform.
Excellent. So would you do something different?
If we started earlier, I mean, if I had to restart this entire process, I think there would be a lot of things that I would have done earlier. Some are from just the technical aspects of building a SaaS and testing. We've had a lot of fortune that we were able to access, live product feeds from major suppliers initially, as soon as very quickly when we started developing. But one thing we didn't really focus enough was just robust and at volume testing. It's quite difficult to do because if you think about it, we're processing thousands of products. Mm-hmm. And then if you want to kind of benchmark them, you need to manually review them. Mm-hmm. And we've always, as a team, we're not a huge team, but we've always as a team tried to kind of avoid doing as much of that as possible, because it's hard, right? You process 10,000 products in a given hour, and then if you really want to check them for how well you've processed them, it takes a lot of manual work. And that kind of stuff, I think it's been incredibly helpful when we actually sat down and started doing that, because we were able to improve our systems and our processes quite significantly because of that. Because we noticed, okay, we have an issue, a consistent issue that shows up with it in this specific area. So maybe just a little bit less focusing on just speeding through our goals and development plan, and more focus on the high quality, on really double checking everything behind us, which it's kind of hard to also. It's in Slovenian we have a great saying: it's easy to be a general after the war, right? So it kind of makes sense. But at the time, we didn't really realize whether or not this was going to be a viable product. So we didn't really focus that much on the specifics. We tried to figure out whether we have a market fit or not. But seeing that this kind of stuff was extremely valuable to us, we probably should have approached it a lot sooner.
So you're using artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence is know that if it doesn't know things, that they made something up. Yeah. Up to, I don't know, 30, 40% sometimes. So how are you dealing with that?
That was a significant challenge initially, because we figured we could write descriptions with LLMs, we could write product titles with LLMs, we could categorize, and we could set product taxonomy all with LLMs, and that turned out not to be true. So we had to develop our own engines and models for categorization. We had to build our entire system from scratch for product taxonomy. We had to build a specific way of working with LLMs on the product description side in order to ensure consistency. This has been actually a really big challenge. It's easy to generate 10 product descriptions. It's quite hard to generate, at least consistently generate 50,000 or 100,000 product descriptions and have them conform to a specific set of rules. So that was quite a big challenge. And we've noticed that certain things just aren't solvable with LLMs, or aren't viable because they're either too expensive or make too many mistakes. So for certain parts of our system, we had to just build our own solutions. But on the other hand, for things like just a description, I think LLMs are extremely viable for that kind of thing. But it takes, like I mentioned, a significant amount of testing, a big volume, and then manually checking that volume, which is quite resource intensive, but pays off in the end.
So What was some of the biggest challenges you faced when starting your business?
So initially, it was just approaching customers, right? How do we get in touch with where we have this initial idea? We're a really small company. How do we approach enterprise level companies? How do we get to the correct decision makers and kind of set up meetings and then start the entire sales process? This was actually a really big challenge for us from the get-go. But
It's really interesting. I think a lot of people have the same issue.
yeah.
How did you manage? How did you tackle that?
Yeah. So we
All that.
Yeah, well, the first thing we kind of naturally assumed was, okay, well, you have this person who's in charge of this team that takes care of all the product taxonomy, right? If you're, hey, we're going to message this team leader, this is a person that might be interested in optimization. Well, that turned out to be a completely wrong assumption, because our software leads companies to actually replace those teams with our software. So when we message that product lead, and they on the other hand, they'd be like, I'm gonna lose people here because of this. They just shut the door for us immediately. So that was surprising for us, but it makes total sense now that we're looking at it from the other way. So we kind of had to sit down and really think about how to approach this. Like, how do we deal with this problem? And initially, what we did was we started reaching out through our network to top level positions in these companies. So we'd ask around our network. Both me and one of my co-founders, we have a significant network. We were able to set up meetings with CEOs and CTOs from these major brands, and that really kind of started moving the needle for us. So just us outreaching through our business clubs to people, asking them, hey, do you know someone that works from this company? Are you able to introduce us? And then building relationships that way, that ended up being the right way for us initially. And then when we were getting some traction, we were able to then message other high-level positions and then tell them, hey, we're already kind of working with these companies. We think that this would be extremely valuable for you too. Are you open to just jumping on a quick call? So initially it was extremely difficult, but as we're getting more proof, right, that this actually works, working with different companies, we find that it's a little bit easier to approach these other potential customers.
So do you think that having a big network is a big business advantage, or something you would suggest all young people to do when they start their career or want to be an entrepreneur?
I think it's extremely important. But you also kind of have to approach this in sort of a non-needy way. Like all of the communities and business communities I'm part of, I've never joined them to sell something, right? I joined them. I was part of them for years. Met people, hung out with people, tried to help anyone I could without selling any of my services or pitching myself in any case. So it took a long time, right? It took quite a long time to build those relationships, and I didn't want to abuse them or just come off as somebody that's there just to kind of profit off of everyone else. But this has been extremely helpful in building any sort of venture. And I think, this is at least from watching some of the younger people, I think that's one thing that is holding a lot of people back.
Okay, so is there any other advice you would give to someone younger than you or less successful than you, to how would it approach to get into this entrepreneurial journey?
So I think the first one is dare to believe. It is possible, you can do it, but realize your limitations as well. I think one of the biggest fears in my life is the unknown unknowns. And I think when I was younger, I didn't really realize what those were. I still don't. Obviously, it's almost, by definition, it's impossible to know. But at least at this stage, I realize that I probably have a lot of unknown unknowns in my life that I still need to focus on. And obsessing over that I think is extremely helpful, but not getting too hung up on that where you're paralyzed with fear. We go, oh, well, there's probably a million things I don't know. That's why I'm never going to start, is also a mistake. So I think there's a balance, and I think it's extremely important that you find one, or that you persist, even though you know that there's probably a lot of things that you don't know. Yes. Acquiring knowledge, I think that's extremely valuable.
Absolutely. I think the imposter syndrome kicks out whenever you reach the next level. You realize that there are so much more that you don't know, that you didn't expect when you started.
Yeah.
But also, I think there's this being perfect, perfectionism is kind of paralyzing people, or giving them excuse not to start. So I think that's even more common than just paralyzing them. And I think we should do it unprepared. I realized one day that I have never get a job that I was qualified for. I switched about 6-7 jobs, and I never was qualified for that job.
That's why everyone should dare to believe.
Yeah. So we are about to the finish of our talk today. Is there any final thoughts?
I really wanted to thank you again for this opportunity. It was really great speaking with you, and yeah, I hope I'm gonna keep following what you do. You have some really interesting conversations, and I'm looking forward to hearing some more of them.
Okay, thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure, and it was really fun.
Thank you. Likewise.
Bye.